All right, it's recording. Yeah. All right, so once again, welcome everybody. This evening, we will be discussing Primordial Chaotic Mothers, Fact or Fiction. Now, the purpose of us discussing this, it varies, but it is because people get big-headed, and what I mean by that is they start finding out new information and then they get extreme or exaggerated, and then everything becomes the mother goddess and I'm a goddess and this, that. Well, this evening we're going to discuss if that's actually fact or fiction. When we go into the mythos of Tiamat being the primordial chaotic mother that comes from the abyss, we have to remember that these stories are myths. Okay, myths can be based upon fact or fiction. But when we ask the question, fact or fiction, we're speaking about present day individuals who, for some reason, everything nowadays is a download. I downloaded this and I received a download here, and I downloaded information and received this great download from the mother goddess, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, here's the problem with that, okay? When individuals want to take a title of goddess, what are you basing this title on? Are you basing it based on some mythos? Are you basing your definition on some religious scriptures? Or are you basing it on your actions in life? Meaning, are you a goddess because you are taking responsibility for all your ways and actions, whether they're detrimental from the past to beneficial to today? Have you taken responsibility for your failures? Have you taken responsibilities for your success, which is the easiest part to do? But are you totally taking responsibility for that in itself? Because we're constantly hearing this person and that person, and everything is, I received a download from the chaotic mothers and they said, men, you must submit. Submit to what? All right. And I ask that because a real man, an alpha male, is not going to submit to anything. Okay. So submit to what when you say these things and you receive the download, and who the hell you receive the download from? See, because the question would be, if you're receiving a download from something somewhere, you're still externalizing, which means you still don't understand self-deification. You're still externalizing as if somewhere, somehow, some individual sitting there saying, oh, I'm going to pick you out of billions of people on this planet. I'm going to pick you to download some knowledge and information so you can pass it along to the masses of people. First of all, do you know how retarded your ego is just to think that? Now, trust me, left-hand path, there's a healthy ego and there's a false ego. The false ego is when you start to delude yourself as if you're some grandiose individual and not realizing the false ego is that which you created to survive in this society, in this world, based upon your program. Not the real you, which has to be, first of all, you have to start discarding all the falsehoods within your life. And then the falsehoods of your beliefs, which are based upon those programmings, to even get to who you really are. So this is what kind of the basis of this evening is. And it's, I think, for time, because we hear a lot of this bullshit from people. And people like to attack myself, Brother Beniti, and different things like that, and have no clue idea of anything we've ever done in the past. So we'll leave it at that. But Brother Beniti, interject, because I know you have some things to say.
Again, on the basics, I want to back up to some of the very basic stuff, which I think we can't negate. When you were talking about the whole concept of this whole God and Goddess concept thing, let's start there real quick, because I think that gets misconstrued. I think that gets misinterpreted. But the key point that you were talking about is being responsible. So I think before we get super spooky and spiritual, and lately I've been focusing a lot on going back to basics, because I think people tend to bypass the basics and they want to be, you know, super spiritual, and they want to levitate, and, you know, they astrally travel, and that's great. But again, are you responsible? And it should reflect in your actions. It should show in how you carry yourself. So if we go back to the very basic premise of how everybody likes to loosely throw around this term, and again, I want to make this clear, even though we're talking about the feminine aspect of this primordial mother goddess thing, men are not obsolete from this either. So I want to make that crystal clear as we move forward. So it basically starts with, are you the actual living example? And like Brother Ravana said, what concept of a god or a goddess are you coming from? Well, from this path, let's make it clear what that is, just so there's no confusion. As he said, it's not about an external download. I spoke to Kali. I really couldn't give two flying shits about anybody's personal dreams or how they astrally traveled, because it's just that, it's personal. It's a personal experience for you, for the development of your growth. We have to establish that. So spending all your time trying to convince others of your spiritual experiences, you could be using that energy to work on yourself. Let's establish that, number one. A god or a goddess simply just means somebody who is responsible and takes full responsibility for their actions, their successes, their failures. We've said this a billion times, probably over the last several years in a million different videos. Crystal clear. It's that simple. Let's not externalize it. Let's not spook it out. So how can we actually apply that process? And I'm going to say probably a couple of things that might not pertain to anybody here. Maybe some people might see or hear this later, and if it doesn't apply to you, then it shouldn't affect you, but we're going to have to call it for what it is. You have to simply ask yourself, are you the example of what a god or a goddess is? Now, is anybody ever going to be at a point in their life where they're never going to have no issues or problems or situations? Absolutely not. But do you have a good grasp? Do you have an overall success rate spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially? That's what this is about. That's why we should be on this path. Not because we want to have some super spooky spiritual experience. That's religion. I left that behind many years ago. But this whole situation with this feminine male thing that you see in these conscious circles, and not just limited so much to the left-hand path in the occult. Everybody for the last, I'm going to say 8 to 10 years has been huge on this, you know, the woman is God. And first, that's great. If that's what you need to motivate you and pump you up, I got no issue with that. But here's the issue I got. Let's analyze a lot of the people that promote this, okay? This is a telltale sign of the origin of where this comes from and really how valid or valid is not. First, let's establish this. There is no such thing as gender on the spiritual realm. It's irrelevant, all right? We know when we study the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti, for an example, we study one of the principles is principle of gender. What we know as male, female, masculine, feminine on the physical is not the same thing on the spiritual. Let's establish that. Is in the mythologies and the pantheons, yes, it talks about the feminine, as like Brother Ravana was mentioning, Tiamat, the primordial mothers, meaning the prime essence of creation, using it in a mythological sense, because those that work this path know that the feminine energy on this path is more intense, more stronger when we're talking from a spiritual perspective. Let's establish that. Where that gets distorted is when we take that and try to manipulate it in the physical. Then we have all these people running around, the female is divine. Now here's the problem I got with it. Not all, so I want to make this clear what I'm about to say so people don't get their feathers ruffled. Most of the females that run around and say that, most, usually have excess baggage, man problems. They're usually man haters. They usually come from horrible relationships or have a history of horrible relationships. And they use this whole ideology and dogma and doctrine as a promotion to mask and hide their insecurities. And then it transitions from that into all men are messed up. All men need to give up the reins because the power of the planet is controlled by the females. Now, I have no problem with a female saying that, but I have to look at the example she's setting. So I can't really take that as valid from a female that's got a history, a long, thorough history of baggage relationships where they went wrong with male. Because again, I'm going to be honest with you, majority of them that promote that are male haters and male bashers. Now, last thing, having said that, this also applies to men too on the flip note. I'm not an individual, because we have also a lot of men out there who cannot handle their relationships and don't know how to deal with females. So they'll resort to male bashing, and then they'll get back into that old patriarchal system where it's male chauvinism and male domination. As I said before, I'm not excluding men from this, but it works both ways. And I don't advocate, because most dudes that talk disrespectful about females or are saying smack, they too have a bad history or a long line of baggage of horrible relationships, and they don't know how to deal with women. So in essence, what am I saying in essence? It's irrelevant on this path. Don't get caught up in that male-female stuff, because, one of the things Ravana said towards the end, it's a reflection of what you're not studying and what you don't know. It's no different than getting caught up in the race and the ethnicity thing. Same thing. Do not confuse this path. Everybody out there claiming to be occult, the left-hand path, there's different levels of that. We have a lot of comedic occultists out there. It's watered down occultism. I mean, again, I mentioned, I think last time, no disrespect to Bobby Hemmett, but Bobby Hemmett is not left-hand path. Stop confusing him for left-hand path. People always send me emails, oh, I saw a video, that's great. And I'm not disrespecting Bobby. He's an elder, so I'm not gonna sit here and talk and disrespect him or any other elder. But what I do wanna make it clear, he is not left-hand path. Let's establish that. I think people need to do that because they still need to connect that Afrocentric cultural blackness into this, because I don't think they can advance on this path if they don't have that security blanket they could latch on to make themselves feel comfortable. So all that male, female, all that race, all that I need to identify with something cultural. And I've recently said, and I've talked to Ravana about this, I'm trying to completely dip away on a public level of connecting with all those African constructs, because that's what they are. They're just another form of religion. And I'm starting to see that people can't disconnect from it. And this is one of them, all right? So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Sure. And to go back on this real quick, let's not forget, sure, if we go into certain mythos, the females first. The female was considered the divine energy, as in the case of, let's say, Shakti or Kali. But Shiva was considered the consciousness. You have to have both for what some would term balance. I myself like to use the term harmonious integration, okay? You cannot forget that in the mythos, these very same mythos, even if a female came first, the man was still necessary, the masculine energy was still necessary for that integration. So we understand what is being said. We understand why it's being said, but we cannot get to the point where we start to just disintegrate the fact that you have to have the integration of both. And when we get to that point, then you start to create a situation where there's more tension between male and female than what is necessary. And Brother Beniti alluded to that. We get to these levels in these situations because of man hating, because of disrupted relationships. You could have had daddy issues growing up, which a lot of times begins at home. Your dad was not there, or he was abusive, or he was just straight retarded. Whatever the case may be, that led into your development. And as you grew up, you then start to interact with men as a female, and you start to see traits of your father, let's say. And a lot of times you end up in a situation without even realizing it, because the programming is that strong. You end up in situations and relationships where the man is exactly like your father. And then here now becomes the more tension built up towards men, where you eventually become a complete hater of men. When you become a complete hater of men, then you start to get extreme, and everything is men are this, and we're dogs, and we're this. Listen, some men have been bullshit ass dogs indeed, But we always seem to turn a blind eye that there's just as much BS that women do as men do. And then we get into this conflict going back and forth. If you understand that fact, then you'll understand that Tiamat was unable to reproduce without the aid of Apsu, who's her counterpart, to be able to produce a integration of the male-female energy, which would come out in your children. Then, if you continue going on and you go into the universe, and people love to use this, oh, the black hole. The black hole is the female, and that is where all of life came from. Yeah, okay. But then when you zoom in on some of these pictures of the black hole, you see all these particles, okay? And then there's particles you don't see that are subatomic particles that are entering the black hole to in so much inseminate or bring life from that black hole. Okay, so we got to get away from this complete just disruption of the power of integration. Also, Beniti did allude to a factor that's very important. When you're walking the left-hand path, the demonic feminine tends to have a more intense and profound effect in your work one of the main reasons is because it is the prime or the original chaotic mother, the original chaos, which many people like to use that loosely as well. I'm a chaos being, but I've been saying this for the last few videos. If you're truly a chaos being, then how do you bring order to your chaos? Are you just lost in the chaos? Because when you go into the annals of time and you look at mythology, Set became a chaos being because he's a master of the chaos, not in the chaos where he has no control over the chaos. He mastered the chaos and learned how to use it by his will and his intent to bring about a change, to bring about transformation, and at times to disrupt things that were stagnant. So we have to start to understand this process. Tiamat is that primordial mother to many. You have others throughout the history of time, but it is important that you start to really develop a keen sense of studying these ancient archetypes from these ancient mythos to get a greater understanding in your work so that you and others do not go down this path of thinking one thing or one energy is more dominant or superior to the other. Okay? Because these very same man-haters who will use this philosophy, the minute they get a man, that philosophy dies down for a while. And they're all up in the penis, getting the penis and enjoying the penis. But then if something goes wrong, here they come right back, man-hating.
Right.
Problem. Because the problem is not the man. The problem is you. And let me say why the problem is you. The problem is you because you still have not dealt with yourself. You have still not dealt with your programming that keeps opening the door for these men, a particular type of men, let's be clear, to come in and disrupt your life because you open the door to that. You open the door to that. And if you really are a goddess, you would take responsibility for that fact and say, you know what? None of this would ever happen if I closed the door to this idiot before it even got started. And don't tell me I didn't know. Well, that's a problem. Let me explain why. One, you didn't know because you didn't care. You didn't care to know because you were so busy in lust that you blinded yourself to what was being displayed. See, people nowadays have this habit of jumping into relationships quickly. There's a problem with that. How do you really get to know a person in the first 3 months? You can't really know someone in the first 3 months. It takes time to build and understand and develop trust and all these different things. Challenges have to come into the relationship. And if you are jumping the gun, what the hell do you think is going to happen? So then you want to blame the man, but you open the door for that. The man is only responsible for his part. You're responsible for your part. So if you want to continue man-hating, address yourself, because a true goddess will take responsibility for where they are today based upon the decisions they made with every relationship they had with a man or woman, because let's put this plain out there. Some woman decides to go and become lesbians, and I've heard very much horror stories where these females who they call studs end up being worse than a man. So please, the choices you make, opening the door for that. You have to start taking responsibility and stop unleashing your trauma, your pain, and your wounds on these men who are already allowed to enter into you. And if they are of the kind to take advantage of a person, you just open a door for them to do exactly that. So let's realize that these things have to be addressed. But see, the problem is people have this misinterpretation. Brother Benito also said this earlier. They have this misinterpretation of the left-hand path. They think the left-hand path is going to just be conjuring up all kinds of demons, and I'm going to just unleash these demons and just shoot them everywhere and destroy all kinds of stuff, and look at how powerful my magic is and all this. No. Yes, that's a part of the left-hand path, but the real purpose is to master yourself. I don't care if you agree with that or don't agree with that. You need to do your homework if you don't realize the left-hand path is about mastering self, and that's not an easy task. Because when you start to confront yourself, you start to face yourself, you're going to realize why you're in the situation you are today. Brother Benito, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to, couple of things. Something else that also comes up in this topic a lot is this whole mitochondrial DNA thing. This is something you hear for now, I'm going to say the last 20 years or so, been talked about heavy in conscious circles. Now, if you go back, and I can't remember the exact month, but in 1993, Time magazine did a big article. It was on the front cover of Time magazine. They did a whole thing with archaeologists, with fossil and carbon dating. They did this whole breakdown on the mitochondrial DNA. And from a physical standpoint, you know, everybody's familiar with, you know, with the bones of Lucy, and through the carbon and fossil data that they've dated this back as the first, you know, physical human to walk the planet. Great. This is sometimes used and run with to enhance this whole female male bashing thing. All right. Again, let me stress this. First and foremost, then people run with it and say, well, they'll talk about back in ancient times, which is my favorite. I love that term. Motherfuckers act like they was back there. They can't give you an exact time frame.
Yeah.
Even if they did, some say it or act as if they were back then. That cracks me up. But they'll sit there and say, well, there was a time where there was this serum that women were able to release from a gland they had called the bobo gland. And it was the same fluid that a man would be able to inject into the female to create the X and the Y chromosomes. And they were able to reproduce a child without the aid of a man. That sounds great. But here's the problem. If that was the case, and really there's a lot of debate that's up for debate, and people run with it as if they can confirm it 100%. There's nobody here today that can confirm it 100% other than what they read, what they researched, what they might have heard in another circle, if you were real with yourself. Because you have organizations like the Nuwapians that ran with it in the 90s. They stopped talking about it because it got ripped apart, because it's comical. You have a lot of Kemetic scholars that tried to run with it, and it's gotten dumbed down because it's debatable. My point is, if you're not a female in this day and time that has the capability that can do it and prove it, then don't lay claim to it and stop talking about it. Because present to me a female right now in 2019 where we have confirmation that she produced, and this is off of what Ravana said, that she produced a child without sexual intercourse with a man, then I will humbly say, okay, prove it, and I'll accept it, no problem. I'll have no issue with it. But until that happens, it's just conjecture and theory. I don't care if you like that or not. We could be here debating that, because this comes up a lot. Well, the female was here first, and yes, I know the whole breakdown. Women have more aspect of mitochondrial DNA than the men. Men have less traces of it, but we do also have it. I get all that. But what I'm trying to say is, again, we're focusing on the externals, okay? And when we get into the whole the whole male-female thing. Let's also back something up when Ravana was talking about bad relationships. You know, we talk about this a lot, daddy issues. And sometimes it's a reflection of the work we're not doing on ourselves. Let's make this clear. There are a lot of men who are guilty of not being able to sustain a successful relationship because most men don't want a female as smart or as intelligent as them or even smarter because it makes them feel inferior. So again, I don't want to just shift the onus on the female only, because then we have men that use consciousness and the doctrine for diction. Let's keep it real. They'll use this to pimp women. They'll use this because if they feel they can find a woman who is not as intelligent and they can sound deep and heavy and start spitting all this conscious pimp game that I like to call it, they'll use this information to try to lure females in, as long as the female is not as intelligent as they are. So now it gives them that feeling of control. And the average man will tell you that. The average weak man, let me stress that, would tell you they don't want a female as smart or smarter than them. So again, I'm saying, I'm following up with that to show you that really when you look at it in its essence, it comes from the inconsistencies and insecurities that we have within ourselves, right? And it's a reflection of the work that we're not doing, right? And yes, this path, there's many aspects to it. And I've said a million times before, there are going to be many things you gravitate towards that resonate with you, you're going to love. There's going to be many things that don't do anything for you, but that's the beauty of it. We don't have to identify with every aspect of the path. That's the beauty of it. You pick and choose what you gravitate towards, what you feel comfortable with. But I think the important thing and the purpose for doing this video is, can we let go of those constructs that are out there? Now, the ones, I'm not talking about the obvious ones. I'm talking about the ones we hold on to subconsciously. We don't think we're under them. But here's the problem I still keep seeing with a lot of people on this path, and this has been hard in the last year. I still see people that can't let go of the voodoo and the Ifa and the Santeria shit. Yep. I still see people that can't let go of the Bobby Hemmett stuff. You understand? It's okay to use it as a reference, but when you get to the point where you need to be the reference yourself, because in essence, if we say the mind is all, the universe is mental and it all resides in the mind, when we're still relying on, as we said in the beginning, I had an external download and, some being communicated to me. We're not understanding how the subjective works. Now, I'm saying that to say, I'm not saying individuals aren't having those experiences. That's not what I'm saying. So when you see, but the thing is, what's comical to me is when people get on YouTube, or they'll call me up, or and they want to convince others of this. I'm not co-signing on that shit. That's why you won't ever hear me ramble on about I had a dream, and in the dream I was taken in a black hole and blah, blah, blah. Anybody that agrees with that and goes, oh yeah, that's heavy deep, you just as a religious motherfucker as the next person, because you just co-signed on that religion. I just started a religion and you became my first followers. That's the problem I got with it. So I'm not saying people are not having these experiences. They are. What I am saying is they don't know the fine line between the subjective and the objective, because what might be real to me may not be real to anybody in here, and vice versa. What might be a reality to you based on your experiences is a reality to you, but I can't accept that reality unless I've had a similar or like experience and we can dialogue about it and identify the similarities, fine. But if it's something that I can't connect with, it just means it's not a reality to me. Doesn't mean it's not a reality to you. I'm not saying you didn't have this experience, because we could be, everybody will sit there and send me email, last night I did a ritual and Cali appeared to me. Great. But why are you wasting your time telling me that? It's pointless to me. It's useless to me, because I can't relate. I wasn't there. I didn't have that personal experience. I don't know how you raised your vibrational frequency up that tapped you in to the aspect of your subjective realm where, in essence, you really manifested whatever image you saw. That's a whole nother story. But see, there's something that raised that heightened level of awareness. What that was something you did. what that is, people will send you a long email back and go, what do you think that is? I love that. They'll write their whole experience down, and then they'll say, well, what do you think that was? I don't know. I mean, I couldn't tell you what that was. I think the deeper thing is you need to revisit that. You need to tap back in, analyze. Remember, one thing I've always said on this path is about being a critical thinker. Let me stress this again. We use critical analysis on everything we do on this path. And it's important we all do that when we're studying, when we're doing research, when we're dialoguing. Any of these things that we're doing, we always must be in the mode of critical thinking. Because if this is what duped the masses for thousands of years. This is how religion to this day. Look at the powerful spell of Christianity. It's so powerful to this day that we still got grown-ass adults believing in these mythological stories to the point where they're willing to argue and fight and kill over it. Look at the Islamic extremists we have that are willing to not only take your life, but their life, if that's not a powerful magical spell. And all of it is founded on faith, myth, and belief. So this is what I'm saying. They accept that as a reality. I'm using the religious example. Now, we know when we look at it from an outside perspective, we know it's all a bunch of bullshit, but you can't tell them that. You can't tell Islamic fundamentalist that believes in the Quran in a fundamentalist way. He believes everything, he or she believes everything they're doing is all wise, right, and exact, 100% certified. Now, we know from stepping out of that mindset, it's not. So I'm saying use that same, just the concept of it, to you in your work. Your work that's personal, outside of the stuff that others can, have or connect with the similar aspects of, is just that, it's personal. And you can't convince others. So this whole primordial mother thing, it becomes too personal for some females. They take it, they run with it. I'm the divine mother female, and I'm great. But do I see the example of that there? Are there some females that live up to that example? Most definitely. The ones that are good mothers, the ones that are handling their finances, the ones that are trying to become, just like the same applies to the male, the ones that are trying to become the best that they can be in all aspects of their life. That is what a true goddess is. Not because I think I'm the flyest shit out there. That's the other thing. Stop with that, please. Okay? Just for the ones that think that, there's another one lined up right behind you. Trust me when I tell you. Okay? And when you're saying that to grown adult men, it's comical. That might work on young bucks that are in their early 20s, but when you're saying that to grown-ass men, I can't tell you how many times we've heard that. It's just comical. Just like females probably hear the same crap from dudes. It's funny. So we have to eliminate that construct, because at the end of the day, when you're taking this journey, there's no such thing as male, female. What you've read in books is irrelevant, because when you're in that ritual chamber and you're doing your work, none of that stuff matters. The books, your personal ideologies, your personal hang-ups, your divisions between masculine and feminine and all that. If you're really locked in and doing work, all that is out the window. It holds no weight. Ask yourself this when you're locked in the chamber. What books? The books are gone. All the constructs are out the window if you're locked in, okay? So that's how we got to start looking at this.
And let me add on to that, because that's a crucial part right there. In the ritual chamber, none of these things that we've been reading, none of these things that we've watched, the movies, the shows, none of these things at that very moment will exist, because it's only you and the work that you're doing that is opening gateways to your subjective realm, to your subconscious mind, unconscious. And that is when the work starts to validate itself, because you're opening doorways and gateways to things within yourself that have long been buried. And at that moment, it doesn't matter if you're male, female, transsexual, whatever the hell you want to be. At that moment, none of that matters, because it's only you and what you are working on, what your focus is on, your intent is on, and that is what starts to emanate in that chamber. You could have read 1,000 books. You could have watched 1,000,000 videos from all these occultists. None of that means anything when you're sitting there doing your ritual. And I'm sure some of y'all who are taking the shadow work class are starting to realize that. And another thing that Beniti said, yes, the emails come through. And what do I always tell y'all? I say, yeah, it could be that, but only you know what it is, because you're the one that's sitting there. You're the one that did the ritual, and only you know yourself better than anybody else. So you could tell me that you saw a flying feather that was slowly descending onto you and tickled your stomach. That doesn't mean anything to me, but that feather may have a significance to you because of something in your past life, right? So you could tell me, but I'm not going to be able to tell you much of anything other than that's interesting, because it's only based upon your experiences in this life and what you have accrued as far as experiences to that point. And when you're sitting there facing this, all these doors open up. And we can't co-sign that. We can't verify that. And our purpose is not to verify that. Our purpose is for you to have your own experience, for you to do the work and understand yourself. That is what this is all about. Just because we might have walked this and done all this work does not make us any more superior than the next person when it comes to your personal work. Your personal work is going to be just that, personal. And I as well laugh my ass off when people use their personal experiences as if that's a barometer to measure what being an occultist is all about. Or I channeled spirits and I spoke to Jimi Hendrix. I don't care if you spoke to Jimi Hendrix, because personally what I'm dealing with in my life and what I'm mastering and working on, Jimi Hendrix is irrelevant to that. It doesn't really matter on none of that, okay? And this is why in various videos, we both been saying, you got many people are coming into here and bringing all the stuff that they learn from other people into this, and you're confusing yourself because you're basing what you learn from things that you brought into this. Literally, it's like you have to empty your cup of everything you think you know. And as you go further into each ritual, you'll start to realize, yo, I don't know shit. I don't care how long you've been walking this. When you are actually in the process of going and doing your ritual, you don't know shit at that very moment. Everything goes out the door. You don't know what's going to come through. You don't know what is going to pop off. You can't really know anything beforehand. And if you're not getting that, it's because you're trying to control the process instead of letting the process happen. Stop trying to control every part of the ritual before it even starts. You got to get to the point where you get into what would be like a trance state where it starts to open up and let the things flow instead of trying to be so hands-on about everything. And what I mean is, oh, well, is this what it means? Well, dude, you just started staring at the candle. How the hell are you already trying to interpret what's happening and you haven't even gone through the whole ritual or the whole process? Stop over-analyzing, overthinking, and just flow. Flow into the process as it's going. Flow into the work as it's happening. Because it can get sometimes scary. It can be shocking, some of the things that are going to come up out of you. And you're going to say, what the hell? Where did that come from? And why is that important to understand? Because at that very moment when that pops up, it doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter your preferences in life or anything like that. That's something that was deeply buried inside of you. Now you have to deal with that regardless. You have to understand that part of yourself, and you have to continue going further. Don't stop just because you got a result. If you're 50 years old and you got one result, you think you now just mastered yourself? Nah, sorry. You've got 50 years worth of BS to still go through, and you can't do that in one night. So don't put unrealistic expectations on yourself. Don't make yourself feel like you're more superior than the next person. Because on this path, yes, we're deifying ourselves, but it's not a competition. Who's more dark, who's godlier, who's more demonic. That's all stuff people do over there. On the right-hand path, and these other conscious circles is competing, and who's greater, who's this, who's that. All that you're trying to do is become greater than you were yesterday. All you're trying to do is master your BS so that you can operate on a different level every day. That's what it comes down to. So don't get caught up in all the programming that we still have within us. All the programming that's basically been set there to divide all these things within ourselves, not even outside of ourselves. Just divide ourselves, because we always got to put things in neat little packages to try to make sense of it. We always got to divide. Oh, this is a man, this is a woman, this is that, this is what this means, this is what that means. And we don't let the process flow without dividing and chopping things up. Oh, okay, now I get it. Sometimes the things that come out of you, there is nothing that you're going to have done beforehand to prepare you for what's going to happen. Nothing. Nothing can prepare you for some of the abstract, some of the weird, some of all these things that come out of you. And it's irrelevant at the end of the day what you believe, how superior you think you are or not. If you're not getting those kind of results, you can keep it walking, keep it moving, because you're not doing ish if you're not really getting to that level. Go ahead,
and let me add one thing to the over-intellectualizing things. This is a huge problem too, which is kind of continuation of what Ravana is talking about. Kind of sometimes we don't let the experience happen. You're not going to find everything in a book somewhere. Here's another famous email that comes through all the time. What book is good for this? What book can I find this in? What? You are the book. How many times we got to say this? The books are just supposed to strike the awareness. If you need to feel that you got to connect with it somewhere in a book, that's not the correct way you want to do this. So one thing this path is not is we got to stop over-intellectualizing things. Because how many teachers, lecturers, in all aspects of so-called conscious movements and ideologies, they're dropping all this deep knowledge, they're dropping all this historical knowledge, etc. But how many people are out there really showing you how to take the work and apply it? That's the question I pose. What good is it if I sit in a lecture for 4 hours about how great Egypt was, and my ego's getting massaged and my chest is all out, and I walk out of there feeling good and rah, rah, rah. But the reality is I'm coming back into the world. I have bills to pay, family to take care of, life to lead. I still need to obtain a certain personal level of success. So where is the connection where everybody's talking this unity thing, we must all come together? There's a collectiveness to this, don't get me wrong. But how does that collectiveness connect to my individual journey? And two, how do I go about taking the steps to apply the work so I can start getting the results for myself? That's in essence what this path is about. Now, I only know a few, I'm not just saying myself, Ravana, there are a very limited few out there, and some of you might be in this room now, that have the steps and show people how to do this through rituals, through work. Because if we're just reading the books, as we've said a billion times before, and regurgitating the information, and it's great, we're walking encyclopedias of information, but if I can't take that and apply it to myself, and once I can apply it to myself, then I can apply and help others. But if I can't help myself and I'm not applying it to me, how in the world am I going to be able to do anything for anybody else in the sense of correct teaching? Because I could sit here all day, Ravana could, I'm sure there's many others, you guys, I'm probably sure there's people here in the room, could go into a 2, 3, 4 hour tangent on any subject on the left-hand path. Could probably talk about witchcraft, sorcery, black magic, great. But I'm the type of person, when I sit in them things, the questions I ask, we got to start also analyzing the questions we ask. and this is not to be judgmental, are we asking intelligent questions? Because after I hear all that, I want to know, okay, the question I'm having, and how has that worked for you? So when I see somebody do a lecture on the mysteries of Egyptian Heka, right? And I'm listening, it's elegant, it sounds detailed. So then my question is, can you give us some examples? I don't need details, word verbatim, but can you just give us some concrete, basic examples of how you applied the work, how it worked for you, how you got results? Because now you got my attention. You don't get my attention by sounding deep, what you think you know. And that's another critical thing we must be aware of on this path that Ravana said a few minutes ago. We can't get upset when somebody else's ideology doesn't line up with ours. I simply took the approach many years ago. If I don't resonate with something, I stay in my lane. I just don't mess with it. That's it. I'm not going to sit there and seek somebody out personally to debate and argue. Now, years ago, I ain't gonna lie. That's what we did years ago.
Yep.
But I'm not going to seek somebody out to try to debate them, because now the lower part of my ego has gotten the better of me, and I feel like I need to prove a point. Now, if you attack me, that's one thing. Then I got to open a can of whoop ass. That's a whole different story. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you go personally out of your way, where you feel the need to personally go out of your way because your ego got bruised, your ego got offended, that you feel you need to go out of your way to prove your point. That's when you know you're not doing what we call personal work, shadow work, whatever you want to call it, that floats your boat. Because really, at the end of the day, one, you'll know this the quicker, nobody gives a shit. And I say that the best way I can put it, in the sense, if you're sitting there thinking somebody cares about you and your thoughts and your ego and your personal approach, they don't. If you think somebody sits around caring because you're having a hard time in life and you're struggling, yeah, people will say shit like, oh, I know how you feel. Man, at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit. What does that all mean? It all means you better get on your own, working on self-gain. Because when you're solely dependent on yourself and not Kali and this deity and that deity, in the sense on an external level, as opposed to embodying them, really subconsciously, you're approaching them from a worship aspect. And that's why I say we need to move away from all these quote unquote African constructs. It's just as bad as monotheism. It's just as bad as a religious person depending on Christianity, or any monotheistic person depending on Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. When you're on this path and you say you deal with the occult, your left-hand path, but you're still approaching it with, I give homage to my ancestors. That's fucking religion.
Yeah.
I pray to my ancestors. I spoke. Stop. Okay? What we've done now is we've just taken that and brought it over here. And what we're talking about is we're uncovering things subconsciously that are stunting or blocking our spiritual growth and evolution. Because here's the reality. Here's another reality check. The only thing that is real is you. Ask yourself this question. Anything that you accept as a reality, you only accepted it when you open yourself up to the awareness of it. So what outside of you is really real? So if you accept it, let's say you're a person that had an experience with Tahuti or Asset, right? That didn't happen until at some point in your journey, you read a book or somebody told you about Asset. As you start ingesting this information of Asset, you started to download it into your computer, which is your subconscious. So now it's there. It's like a program that's embedded there. So as you continue on your journey, that's when the experiences started happening with Asset. Now ask yourself this. Before Asset was even introduced to you, did she exist? And don't answer that question quickly, because you'll probably fall in some shit if you do. Did she, or whatever deity it was, exist before that happened? I'm saying that to go to show you, whatever you accepted as a reality became real to you. So nothing is real to you unless you accept it. It's that simple. Okay? Just want to throw that in there.
Also, let me say this. I'm of the same vibration. If you are gonna listen, I'll put it like this. we're about our business. We're about our work. This is why we don't have time to debate. We don't have time to do all this stuff with all these people who are happy-go-lucky about that stuff. But if you're going to speak about me, I will confront you. And if you're going to not only speak about me and I confront you, I'm going to tell you, let's discuss this. Let's talk. If you're man enough to put my name in your mouth or put it out here on memes or whatever, and I confront you and then you tell me F off and you're not man enough to discuss things, then you are less than a fucking mosquito to me. Just needs to be squashed. 1. 2, to this point, what most of us have to realize is myself, Beniti, and others, what we mostly have done videos is on left-hand path philosophy. You have to be a fool to think that we're going to talk about the inner workings that we've been initiated and gone through on a public forum and public video. Because people will use these rituals and can hurt themselves in the process. So to judge and think of a person like, okay, that's all these guys ever talk about, and that's all they must know, you're a goddamn fool. We discussed the philosophy, but those who have been to the rituals understand the inner working that we present, that Brother Beniti puts together and myself. You understand the inner workings, okay? We're not gonna put our private business out in public. You're retarded if you think we're gonna do that. And you're retarded if you think we're gonna go into the deeper mysteries and present it in public. Not happening. Now, I will say this, in that left-hand path philosophy, you have to understand that's what most of these videos are. It's the philosophy, okay? Within that philosophy, it's a path. It's a way that you have principles and things that you govern your life and walk your life with. But within that left-hand path, there's magic, there's alchemy, there's all kinds of stuff. So don't confuse and say, well, vampire magic is left-hand path. Yes, in its philosophy, but the magic of vampirism, let's say, is just that. It's magic. People have this habit of thinking that, okay, all these things are left-hand path, and true, by philosophy they are, but then they think that, okay, if I'm just a magician, then I'm left-hand path. You are in the sense of that, but you have to understand it's a philosophy that you practice, that the principles you apply. Then you have your subsets of things you do. You can use magic, you can use alchemy, you can use all kinds of things to develop and master yourself. So don't get those things confused and say, okay, that, okay, as a left-hand path philosopher, okay, or I'm living the left-hand path, that someone may not be, let's say, dark enough. So, because a person can do alchemy from a left-hand path perspective and understand the philosophy of left-hand path fully and still do alchemy, and they're still getting results and mastering themselves without having to go do some of, let's say, some of the other magic, the adversarial magic, or Luciferianism, things like that. People have to get out of this habit of thinking and associating this is what it is, and this is what it means to be left-hand path. There's principles, that's the philosophy. Then there's practices you do within there to master and work on yourself, to develop yourself, to deify yourself. So please don't get that twisted. Now, what we're gonna do here, for sake of time, is we're gonna take questions. All right, now listen closely. But before we get to the questions, I'm gonna make announcements, but I'm gonna just say this now. If you have a question, only one question. Do not give me one question with 3 parts. It's not happening. One question, that's it. If you don't have a question, say pass. If you have a comment, one comment. Not one comment with 5 different philosophies or theories or ideas behind it. So understand, one question. If you don't have one, say I pass. One comment, pass. Or if you don't have a comment, pass. All right? For sake of time. Now let me say this, announcements. January 1st is the deadline for the Necromancy class. For those, there's 4 seats left for people who are still interested. I've been getting emails left and right. The deadline is January 1st. There's a reason for that, because after that, everything has to be prepared. The curriculum is already set, but I'm not going to be taking last minute people. No. If you want to get down, you have to January 1st, hit me up at the Black Serpent Clan at gmail.com. That's the Black Serpent Clan at gmail.com. Benita, you got any announcements you want to make now?
Yeah, real quick. Same thing. January class. I mean, everything I'm saying is on the Instagram. It's not like if you're on the Instagram, you see it. But just a reminder, I have the January classes that are going to run from January to March. And I know me and you discussed the Patreon thing. I did get that up and running. I know you got it up and running. So I'll be doing my first private live stream only for Patreon members. And it's going to be centered on the importance of ritual work. And as me and Ravana discussed, we'll be able to go a little more private in there. And I'm actually going to show techniques and get a little more detailed. That'll be on January 9th. Stop. That'll be on January 9th. So we've discussed moving forward, doing some private stuff on there where we can get more in depth. It'll be a little more limited. Nosy people and, leeches can still come, but unfortunately they're going to have to pay to be that now, because it will eliminate most people that are serious, and it's not about the money thing. I want to make that clear. It'll cut out a lot of the nonsense where we can get a little more in depth. So there'll be stuff. That's just the beginning. As time goes on, that stuff will be built up. But other than that, the classes in January, and then I've been doing anybody interested in a yearly forecast reading. I've been busy as shit with that. That's why you haven't been seeing me on YouTube, and I'm kind of pulling back from the YouTube a little bit. Me and Ravana discussed that too. I'm just not going to be going on there as much, maybe twice a month, 3 times a month, I don't know. But if anybody's interested in a reading or a yearly forecast reading, I'll be doing them for about another month or so. You can contact me. The Instagram or knum19@gmail.com, KHNUM19@gmail.com.
All right, perfect. Thank you, brother.
Yep.
All right, so let's go around the room, take some questions. All right, Dawn, you're first.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I really don't have too much to say. I'm gonna let it move on, but
all right.
I'm happy I'm here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. S. Carter, 717.
We got Jay-Z up in here?
Yeah, Sean Carter right there.
Nah, I'm good.
All right, thank you, bro. Demetrius.
No. I just have a comment, just a quick comment. We're talking about the whole goddess thing and how that's gotten out of control. If you guys really want to see that, because I'm involved in a lot of pagan and witchcraft circles and whatnot.
Mom.
If you go to those gatherings, that's what you'll be seeing. That's what you'll be experiencing, is that nonsense right there. And women are just as trifling as the men. So
okay.
What y'all are saying is 100% true. So it's crazy out there with that.
And I want to see, I don't know if everybody saw Demetrius's comment in the chat when we were talking about the mitochondrial DNA. If you didn't, I would suggest you guys go take a look at it. And he made a comment, and it's true. Parthenogenesis, male deities are also known for that as well as female, when we were talking about that stuff earlier. And that's a good point. I saw it earlier. I meant to point that out there. For those that didn't see it, he had typed that in the chat earlier. And that's important. That's another thing. Go research that, and it'll eliminate that mindset.
I think the thing is with the mythos and those stories, I mean, if you get the spookism out of it, you can pull a lot of science and information out of that concept, because they're not just talking about one gender versus another. These are forces inside of you. So the feminine being implosive, masculine being explosive. I mean, you got Zeus yakking up other currents and things like that out of his head and all this other shit. You got these goddesses doing the same thing. So this is not like us versus them.
And that's a good point, because as I said earlier, Dr. York ran with that shit. He built a whole doctrine off of that for several years. And that's why I mentioned that earlier. That's what we got to be careful we don't do that. Because look, we could look at anything and run with it. We can look at anything and we can always, as we say, hype it up and give it more flavor and make it look like something it actually isn't. And that's what tends to happen with a lot of these ideologies. You gotta be careful.
Yep.
All right. Appreciate it, Demetrius. JR the Sith Star.
Yo, just got a comment. Good shit. I needed to hear this shit. Good shit.
All right, bro. That's my boy right there. It's my boy. Yvette. Yvette.
Hi. No, it's pass. I'm just listening and taking everything in. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Yvette.
Mhm.
Yo, they setting off fireworks out here. Goddamn people. But I tell you.
Already? Damn.
Yes, bro. They can't wait.
Yeah, they doing it. Well, they haven't started yet, but
Yeah. Mika. Are you there, Mika?
I'm here. You can pass.
All right.
I'm just listening.
All right. Necro Cannon. You there? Necro look in the dark. Brother, come out the dark. Come out the cavern, brother.
went to go get some grub.
Come out the cave, brother.
I think he must have stepped away.
Yeah. I love him.
Check him again at the end. He probably stepped away.
Yeah. All right. Raina.
Hey, thanks. Pass.
Okay, cool. Kim. Kim. How are you?
Hello. I'm just listening. So pass.
All right.
What's up, Kim?
Hey, how are you?
All right.
All right, Kim. I'll see you Friday.
Yes.
Bring that fire. All right. Bye.
Okay.
All right. I just see Galaxy J7 Refine looking like Sadat X. Hold on. Hey, look, he kind of resembles Sadat X. Wait, the thing just jumped. I think his phone messed up. All right, Blair. Hello?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
I kind of had a question.
Is this just one part question? 'Cause I know. Yes.
Hey, everybody's passing.
Yeah, doesn't matter. One part question. That's it.
Anyways, so seeing as you guys say that you're not supposed to too much like look into books and that things are supposed to come from within, how do you tap into something that has been calling?
Okay, let me say this. First of all, don't misinterpret that we're saying books are just the guideline. They're not the end of the wherewithal of everything. It's just a guideline. It's just like you go to a restaurant, here's a menu, right? You look at the menu, but you ask, can I alter this? Can I get this with it? Can I get that with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what a book really is. It's just a manuscript. It's just something it's a guideline. But the problem becomes when people look at the book and make it a Bible, make it a scripture, and everything in that book is profound and worship, and it should be like this. That becomes the problem. Second of all, whatever's calling you, you have to, one, identify what the heck it is. Two, why is it calling you? Or three, most importantly, is just a desire that you have. Sometimes when things seem to be calling us, it's not always that case. Sometimes we have a desire for that. And then we start to attract those things into our life, and we start to hear the volume get louder and louder because that's what we're desiring. So it can be any of those things, but you have to really look at that.
Okay. Can I please ask a quick question and you can't answer yes or no?
No.
Please?
No. Email me.
Why?
No.
Oh my gosh.
We have time. We're in the time frame here tonight. So
the last thing I just want to add to that, just for everybody in the room. Again, it's so there's no misconfusion of what we said about the books. I love books. I collect books. I got a library of books.
Yep.
What we were saying is more so there's no confusion, is make sure we're not solely depending on the books. That's it. That's just so there's no confusion with that.
Right. You got that, Blair?
Yes. Can I please just ask it?
No,
it's a yes or no.
See,
it's
not
a
fair.
yes or no.
Nope, that's not fair for everybody.
But everybody passed.
Doesn't matter. Let's still, 15 other people, 12 other people? It's not fair to them. Now, if there's time at the end, maybe.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Maybe. Don't get the maybe misconstrued either. All right. Maybe.
He's so damn mean.
Yes, I am. Bye. Kenyatta.
I passed, brother.
Pass? All right. Cool. Lady Mystic, Tanisha, what up?
Greetings. Greetings. I
Greetings.
pass.
You pass? No. Okay.
What's up, Lady
Okay.
Mystic?
Hi. Hi.
All right. Thank you. Duma, what's up? Ah, no. See, here's the problem, Duma. You're wearing a Washington Nationals hat. You're violating all Yankee principles right now, brother. Go ahead, bro.
Where's Duma at? I don't even see him.
Right there.
I came in late.
Oh, I see him. Hey, what's going on, bro?
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on? I came in late, so I had to pass.
All right, bro. Cool. You see that, Benny? He proudly rocking that hat, brother.
Hey. DC1.
All right, Galaxy J7 Refine. Let's see if we can get you on here. Let's see. All right. Maybe your phone's muted. Check your phone. I think it's muted on your side.
Is that me?
Yep, go ahead. I think I hear you now. Go ahead. Hold on. You know, this thing is tripping.
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro. Go ahead.
Okay. I came in late.
All right. I think you froze too. All right. So I'll come back. All right, let me try you again because it seems. All right, go ahead, bro.
I think I'm back now. I'm back now.
Yep.
I came in late too, but I caught the tail end of the conversation. My question is, as far as dealing with people, this Octane Fire, I wanted to know.
Okay.
I had to log in under a different name tonight. My question is, as far as dealing with people who, because people, I guess they want to try to put you in a box. So when they ask you what religion are you, and you say you're not a religion, and they want to know what your faith is and all that, and like I have no problem letting people know what I'm into, but then as soon as I say I'm not affiliated with any religion, then they want to try to convert or go in or stop the conversation. Not really a question. It's like as far as how do you handle certain people like that, because it's like when they want to keep asking you, so what do you believe, and you letting them know, but then they want to know, do you believe in Jesus, or do you believe in Allah, or do you believe in, what do you believe, Buddhism, things like that. And sometimes I have good conversation, but some people are so stubborn that I have to end the conversation.
Right.
And in ending the conversation, I kind of feel like I failed a little bit because I couldn't, I don't know, explain exactly what I was feeling or exactly what I feel.
Well, don't look at it as failure, brother.
Yeah, if I could real quick on that,
Yeah,
I'll be brief, and then Ravana, if you want to ask something. People do that. That's a very good question. That's an excellent question. People do that for their own personal insecurities because, like you said, they're trying to put you in a box because they need to feel secure identifying you with something that they can connect with. So when you're not telling them you're Muslim, you're Christian, you're Jew or Buddhist or something that they feel comfortable with, they don't know how to address you. So what I found to do over the years, and let me back up to something you said, I think you're doing the bigger, you're not failing because you don't properly address it. I think that's the smarter thing to do because you don't want to deal with the nonsense and the bullshit as long as they're not becoming overly aggressive. So this is how I approach it. One, it's a case-by-case basis. Let's establish that. There's just the straight ignorant that if it's just this is somebody you're just going to run into and you probably ain't ever going to really deal with again, I wouldn't even waste my time and energy. I just let it go. It's not even worth it. Now, if this is, say, family, friends, people you see regularly, then there's a different way you got to handle that. You know, I try to just be first. You can just be like, look, you can say things and they still don't get it. I'm a spiritual person. I don't succumb to any particular religion or ideology. That sometimes doesn't work. And then there's a way you can simply explain it, but it has to be by your example. The way you don't want to do it, unless, you're not provoked. You don't want to get overly aggressive and go in on them hard because that's not going to do anything either. I'm saying it's a case-by-case situation. You've got to feel it out. But the reality also comes sometimes to the point, no matter what you say or do, they just ain't going to get it. No matter what you do, they're just not going to get it. So sometimes it is better to take the high road and don't even waste your time and energy. But don't feel like you failed because that could be that part of your ego that comes up sometimes where you feel like you got to have the last word. And I get that, but I don't think you're failing. I actually think you're being more intelligent, because who do you really need to prove anything to but yourself? We're not interested in convincing. I'm not interested in convincing the doubters or anybody else, regardless of what they might think. I know, and I'm firm and comfortable and secure in what I'm doing, so I'm not interested in proving it to them. But it is a very common thing that'll happen, especially amongst family and friends. But if it's a fly-by person, you ain't gonna. I wouldn't waste my time. So.
Yep.
Right. You know, because it's like if I say I'm into occult science, then you believe in the devil, you worship the devil now, and I'm like, nah, not even close, not even close.
No, just that.
And
occult
so
just
it's
means
just
that which is hidden. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. And I try to explain that too, but no, people don't want to hear it.
Yep. All right, brother. Appreciate it.
So.
All right.
Hey, Ravon, I got like 5 more minutes, brother. I'm gonna have to step out.
All right. All right, let me see. Let me go to Smooth T. Smooth T.
Pass, my brother.
All right. Blissful Goddess. Blissful Goddess. Unmute. Are you there? Blissful God. I don't see Blissful Goddess ain't answer. So. Tasha. What up, Tasha Loaded Flower Bomb?
I'm a pass. I'm good.
All right. Appreciate it. Therese. Therese, are you there?
Hi. Yeah, I'm here.
Hello.
I pass.
All right. Thank you. All right. Charmaine, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good.
No questions, no comments. I'm all good.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dottie Pearl.
Hello.
Hello, Dottie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And my phone, I dropped it so many times that it wasn't working earlier. Okay.
All right.
I'm just taking it all in as well. And thanks for having me.
All right. No problem. All right. Bye-bye. Geez, these fireworks pissing me off anyway. Pioli. Pioli, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. No, I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna pass.
All right. Appreciate it, brother.
All right. I'll hit you on the email if anything.
All right, cool. All right, so that wraps it all up. We went through everybody. So once again, we thank everybody for coming out. Any classes people are ready to sign up for, hit myself up, Brother Beniti. Y'all have a dark, beautiful night. All right. Take care. Wait, did I end this damn thing?